Hi, I'm Jen Thun with YourColorStyle.com. The other day, I was watching TV with my daughter, and we were watching an episode of The Office. And I don't know if you're familiar with the TV show, but it's a very funny show based on an office. And in this particular episode, they decided to bring back casual Fridays. So the shtick is that everybody's coming in t-shirt and jeans and like super casual stuff. And there's this one particular character, her name is Bernice, who was wearing something that was like highly inappropriate, which is obviously why the scene was so funny. And the scene that really resonated with me and that is relevant to this video goes like this. The HR manager, who clearly is not interested in being an HR guy, comes over to Bernice and he's like, yeah, what you're wearing is it's just really not appropriate. And she's, immediately gets defensive. What do you mean it? I look just fine. And when she stands up, she's wearing this halter top, like halter dress. So strapless elastic band. And the dress is like incredibly too short. I mean, like just barely covers what's important. And, so her pale legs are there and she's just barely almost naked. And she's like, gets all defensive and everything. She's fine. You want me to, pull it down? So of course, when she pulls it down, her boob starts hanging out. And everyone's like, oh, and turning their eyes away and, in shock or staring. And it just gets worse and worse. So then she's like, oh, whatever. And then she pulls it up. And then, of course, everything below the waist starts to show. And it just, and the camera's all blurry, trying to, obviously make this really inappropriate. And it's a very, very funny scene. I highly recommend you go find it if you haven't seen it, because it's very funny. So, that's an extreme, obviously. I'm pretty sure the writers of this show, found some truth in it to make it funny, because somebody somewhere wore something so completely inappropriate to the office that, completely shocked someone. Okay, so this leads me into what kind of colors you might want to pay attention to when you're choosing your outfits. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the obvious things of, obviously you're not going to wear strapless dresses that are too short for the office. That's an obvious one, right? Your boobs aren't supposed to be hanging out, or your butt or whatever. But I do want to talk about being conscious about some of the color choices that you're making when you're putting your outfits together, especially if it's a situation where you want to make a good impression, or maybe it's a first time impression. So here are 4 things you can consider and think about when you're putting your outfit together and thinking about the colors that you are choosing for for where you're going. The first thing is to consider the scenario. And here's what I mean by that. So what is the scenario? Where are you going? What is it? Is it a party? Is it an outdoor barbecue? Is it a wedding? Is it a funeral? Because it matters. Wearing something that is bright, that typically puts you in a more energy, look at me, attention grabbing type of outfit. It doesn't really matter what you're wearing. If you're wearing a really bright color, might be inappropriate going to something that is more serious, like a funeral, for example. So you want to make sure that what you're wearing is kind of appropriate for the scenario. Wearing a bright color, going to a party, that might be appropriate. And the same thing goes for wearing something that's very soft and subdued. It's a very quiet look. And if you're going to a party, maybe that's not what you're looking for, because you might kind of fall into the background and not really fit in, right? And if you're wearing a really dark color, it's more formal and serious, and you wear that to a wedding that's a spring wedding, might again not really fit in very well. So you want to think about where you're actually going and what you're going to be wearing. That's an obvious one. The next thing I want you to think about, though, is the overall mood of that scenario. Kind of goes hand in hand, obviously, right? But the thing is that you could be going to a business meeting at an office, but the office could be a very creative office. So you may want to appear professional, but you may also want to fit in, because everybody there wears bright colors and is very creative. And so in that situation, maybe brighter colors are more appropriate versus, a navy suit. again, you have to kind of weigh where you're going and what kind of mood everything is. The mood also has to do with, again, if you're going to some place that's really, really happy, you might want to be wearing more happier colors than low, deep, sad colors. Like, in this case, all black might not be appropriate in that situation. I don't know. What is your goal? What is your style goal? Because you should have an idea of how you want to feel and be seen when going into this environment, right? So let's take the party, for example. Let's take a cocktail party, which is a perfect example. If you think about it, even when you think about like the award ceremonies that you see for like the Grammys and music awards and the Oscars, I would imagine that the stars that go there are struggling with this. How do I stand out, or how do I fit in? And I think there's two different things, right? Because that's when you start to see people who aren't wearing their typical black dresses, their cocktail dresses, they're wearing these bright colors because they want to stand out. So what is your goal? And it may not be to stand out. It might be that you actually want to blend in. And so you kind of need to think about that, because you could put on a bright red dress and really stand out and be the center of attention. Or it could be that, I really just kind of want to blend in because we're honoring somebody else in this and I don't want to compete with them. So maybe a darker color, because maybe it's a formal event, maybe it's black, or just a dark teal or dark plum would be more appropriate than a very, very bright color. The same thing goes for lighter colors. Maybe a pastel isn't going to be appropriate for a formal event in the evening, unless it's like a shimmery fabric or something like that. Okay? So, and the same is probably true. I can't help but think about if you are going to say like a job interview or something, and you want to convey, that you are an expert or an authority in a particular field, that you want to be taken seriously and not be seen as someone that is, silly, or there's a bias there, then you probably wouldn't wear light, soft, pastel-y colors to a business interview or a job interview, because you want to be taken seriously. And the reality is the bias is that those beautiful light colors are seen as very soft and feminine and delicate. Not to say you can't wear those colors in a business environment, but if you're really wanting to appear more authoritative, then you might want to wear colors that are stronger for you. Blues, navy blues, and that kind of a thing. And the fourth thing to keep in mind is just your true personality. If your personality is someone who is bold and outgoing and full of energy, enthusiasm, then wearing something that is quiet and conservative just may not feel right and may not look right. You might feel uncomfortable in your own skin. And so you need to balance what is appropriate for where you're going, how you actually want to be seen, and also what feels good for you, right? And what's the right thing for you. And the same is true if you are someone that is a little bit more soft-spoken, quieter. Those quieter looks are going to feel better on you. You may want to walk into a cocktail party wearing a dusty pink dress because that just feels good for you and is appropriate. And you may stand out, but in a very different, beautiful way, because you just want to be true to yourself. So I hope that helps. Those are 4 things you can kind of think about as you're getting ready for a particular scenario, for that first impression. Because when you walk in, people are biased. They are. They see visual before they take any other information in. And so they make assumptions that may or may not change after they get to know you. Human beings do that. We do that. We take into account what we see and we assess it to see if we are somehow in danger or not. It's just what we do, whether we even realize it or not. Whether we're the most open-minded person in the world, you're still making some kind of judgment and assumption about a person. So if you walk into a room in a bright red dress, people are going to make assumptions. They're going to assume that maybe you're outgoing, you're loud, you're full of energy, you're bold. If that's what you want, perfect. But if it's not, well, what did you want, right? And if you walk into a place that's super creative and you're in all black, they might make an assumption that you're boring or very, very sleek and stylish, or they're going to make some kind of assumption. So your goal kind of is, what colors are you going to put on yourself to help communicate the message and the image that you want for that first impression, so that people register that, oh, that person's fun, let's have her come over here, or not, right? Or that person, I want to know what that person has to say. That person seems interesting to me. That person seems to belong here. It's funny, when you walk around in a corporate environment, in a corporate office, you have a different kind of assumptions around people. People that are in t-shirt and jeans doesn't mean that they're not executives, but if you are brand new to that office, you may not necessarily make that assumption about that person. You might think that they're, maybe lower level. And if you saw someone walking through in heels and beautiful slacks and a beautiful blouse, you might assume that person's an executive, even if that's not true either. So again, it's that first time perceptions and assumptions that people make, and to position yourself and where you want to be when you meet someone. I'll give you one more example before we wrap this up, and it would be more on a personal level. So let's say you have a first date or someone you're meeting for the first time that you are hoping that it might be a romantic engagement. That is not the time to be wearing a suit or navy blue or black. It's a time to maybe appear a little bit more approachable, light, feminine, and maybe not too sexy, maybe not too bold. If that's who you are, that's what you want, you knock yourself out. But you got to think about, what kind of impression do I want to give? And it's probably not going to be super serious. It's going to be more light, more approachable. So you might end up wearing some lighter colors, some lighter, brighter colors, but maybe not too bold. So I hope that helps. In the description below this video is a link to more information about an ebook that's called What Your Colors Are Saying About You. And it is a full ebook that goes into what colors you should wear when, what the message is that you're sending, and how you can craft your image using color in different ways to help convey the message that you want. So you should check that out. And thank you for watching.